Okay, this is part A of the KhoodeelaarTV television channel being broadcast only on the internet, online only, from London in the within quotes UK. And this is timed at 14:50 hours GMT, which is 15:50 hours local time in the UK. And there is a piece on page 2 of the Financial Times today, Monday the 4th of October 2021, that actually refers to farming industry. And apparently there is anger over powers for body scrutinizing trade accords. That's the one. Inevitably, when it is the farmers or the farming industry, it will have a lot to do with the depraved DEFRA. Because Neil Parish, the Cons chair of the House of Commons Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee, accused ministers of behaving with apparent indifference to farming and the environmental groups impacted by the post-Brexit trade deals. Parish is quoted as saying as follows: "We are concerned that the government is deliberately running down the clock on establishing the Trade and Agricultural Commission. He told Liz Truss at that time, the International Trade Secretary. Truss said an interim commission would be set up in the short term, vowing the move would not undermine the body. However, farming industry is skeptical. Nick von Westenholz, Trade Secretary Director at the Trade Strategy Director at the National Farmers Union, said it was a great shame the government had not even agreed on a set of core standards for striking trade deals." Now, this is all very odd, because this Neil Parish has not been on the record at any stage in the last 4 years during which the same conservative government has been perpetrating a criminally confected series of lies and untruths against baby angel Geronimo. And none of the committee members in the House of Commons Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee has been on the record. That is to say, we cannot find any evidence on the record that any members, either conservative or from any other party, has had any say or anything to say against the criminality confected and issued and retailed by the depraved DEFRA against the baby angel Geronimo. So based on that silence about the illegality breaking of the law, intentional conspiracy to do damage to the perfectly healthy baby angel Geronimo, perfectly healthy, the healthiest being on the planet Earth, baby angel Geronimo, against all the criminality. So we just put that on the record that these criminals are now spewing alleged concern about other aspects of the scum-fronted scum regime doing harm to the farming industry, so-called. They are as immoral, as corrupt, and as lacking in any compassion as the depraved DEFRA and the depraved regime of the congenital liar, Boris Johnson. Now, just above that piece is a piece headed Interview, Transport Secretary. And it's an interview allegedly Sharp's had with the financial crimes. And this one is about HS2. And the headline is The Sharp's Signals Rethink on High-Speed 2 Rail Line. And this is significant because the HS2, which is high speed rail, HS2, it has been absolutely untenable, corruptly done by the Gordon Brown regime or Gordon Brown fronted regime, colluding stupidly with the big business criminals, plotting to loot more than 100 billion pounds already under the guise of the high speed 2. Now, Grant Shapps, who is a self-confessed liar, is looking for a way out because it's untenable. So what he's saying for his rethink is that the HS2 was not a conservative project. It was a project done by the previous Labour regime. Now that is the most pathetic way to justify a rethink. Whoever conveyed or confected or conspired to create the HS2 project, it was done at the behest of big business looters. And it is now 11 years, more than 11 years since the so-called Labour regime was last in power. So what has the three prime ministerial kind of series of prime ministers, Cameron, May, and Boris Johnson, they have no excuse because throughout the last 11 years, evidence has been mounting, mounting evidence has been emerging that the HS2 was uneconomic. It was obsolete even before it was launched. And with the last 2 years, mainly taken up by the pandemic and the impact of the hitherto unprecedented in the last 100 years, unprecedented lockdown and the various kind of changes, fundamental changes to people's travel, etc., and the enforced recognition of the climate change impact. HS2 or rail travel, in the way that the kind of lying peddlers of the HS2 scam tried to oversell the project, these things are no longer valid. And it's not going to be at all the same for rail travel in the next foreseeable future as it was, say, in the last 100 years or so. And rail travel in this country, in the UK, has suffered or has been inflicted serious damage in terms of the economic viability by the infliction of Brexit. HS2 was not conceived of just by relying on the Little England, the map, the Little England spaces. HS2 was devised by fully having confidence in the continuation of the links with the continent, the mainland continent. So, the financial crimes is not covering any of that, but it is mentioning COVID-19, and I'll come to that in a minute. But before I come to that, the piece underneath that is the anger over powers for the body scrutinizing trade accords. On this one, sharp signals rethink on high-speed 2 rail line. Both of these are the latest confessions, admissions by the financial crimes that the Boris Johnson-fronted cabal, central government, is not functioning at all. Not functioning to the actual needs of the economy, regardless of the party politics and regardless of the ideology, and the kind of enforced confession by the liar Grant Shapps that HS2 needs to be scrapped is nothing to do with the regime wanting to be transparent, accountable, responsive to the valid, objectively valid, evidential objections and warnings against such a project. Just as the depraved DEFRA has been allowed to be lying against baby Angel Geronimo for 4 years plus, against all the evidence, all the known evidence, DEFRA has been depraved, behaving in a depraved, corrupt, criminal, cruel, unjust way against the most healthy baby Angel Geronimo for more than 4 years. Not one MP has raised any objections, really. None of the financial crimes, none of the Fleet Street has actually publicly recognized the evil. It's uneconomic, of course, but it's evil plot and behavior by the crooks and criminals, the depraved, evil ones, evildoers at DEFRA and via DEFRA. And the congenital liar, Boris Johnson, has been going along with this targeted, defamatory, untruthful, cruel, criminal vilification and untruth against the baby Angel Geronimo. And the headline in the next piece on page 3 in the Financial Crimes, which is peddled under National, the headline is White Collar Staff Shortages Drive Fierce War for Talent. And the subheading is Pay Levels Surge as Professional Services Firms Struggle to Fill Office Based Vacancies. Business leaders said the supply of potential candidates for jobs had also been hit by Brexit, with many overseas workers previously based in the UK returning to their home countries. Paul Eagland, managing partner at BDO, the UK's fifth largest accounting firm, said his firm had experienced a significant increase in work and revenues since the end of most recent lockdown restrictions. Strong growth in areas such as mergers and acquisitions and forensic accounting had exacerbated the war for talent, he said. BDO increased its staff bonus pool by 36% to 19 million for the year to June as a result. Pay at other accounting firms has jumped to record levels, with Deloitte's 691 partners receiving more than 1 million each on average in the past year. And it goes on. So, what is the Financial Crimes editorial saying? And the entirety of the piece about rising pay for accounting and low trading businesses is done by brazenly leaving the impact on society. It's talking technical rubbish as explanation for the increase in the salaries and the demand for the so-called white-collar staff. Increase in society generally, and increasing lack of impact analysis and impact recognition about society, and the lack of reference to the impact on the majority, the many in society. And even the liar Johnson is admitting, according to the peddler, the Daily Mail, saying Boris blames shortages on low wages. This is complete, utter dishonesty. And there are 4 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages about the corrupt Metropolitan Police regime. And there is no recognition in the Mail there's absolutely no recognition in the Daily Mail of the organizational, ethical death of policing in this country. And there is no recognition of that death on the part of the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer. And it goes on, the Daily Mail on the front page says, police's social media sickness. What the Daily Mail doesn't say is that it's not just the Metropolitan Police or the general police forces who are maintaining sick social media presence and operations. This sickness is not different from the sickness of the Daily Mail itself. The Daily Mail, despite this apparently disgusted kind of approach or attitude or outlook or response to the sick social media, is actually complicit with the sickness. And despite this double page spread apparently recognizing the evil done by the police to Sarah Everard, the Daily Mail would not, the Financial Crimes would not in each of the related fields. Let's say the financial crimes about HS2 and the DEFRA depraved, and the Daily Mail in relation to Sarah Everard and the kidnap and the rape and the murder of Sarah Everard by a Sarbing policeman. They would not do the actual thing that is necessary, which is to genuinely call for and demand the scrapping of policing as it is now. As we have said, even the fact that the Mail on Sunday allowed Peter Hitchens to spew the claim that for 2 years he has been calling for the scrapping of the police. Even Peter Hitchens doesn't really believe in the solution to the corrupt and poisonous policing. The solution is not to start again, or rather, the solution is not to just start again, but actually to scrap it and think about instituting truth and truthful accounting and accountability for society by all the agencies of the state, all the parts of the state, all the so-called organs of the state, operational organs of the state, let's say. And it will not happen, because here is the Times saying that Johnson rules out public inquiry into Sarah Everard's case. Here in the Times. So Johnson doesn't think that the police have done really badly. What it means is that Sarah Everard was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by a Sarbing policeman in the Metropolitan Police. And Johnson doesn't think that this is the kind of last opportunity to save society by scrapping the police. Because police has become a home, a cover for committing crimes of various sorts. And if that happens, then the rest of society, where other criminals are operating at various stages on various platforms, whose behavior are damaging and destroying millions of people in the country, and whose behavior therefore need genuine action by police, and the police are not doing anything. So to what extent is the fact that so many criminals are being allowed to roam around after being complained against, after the crimes being brought to the attention of the police? I mean, what is the connection between them being allowed to roam around and the internal criminality that is going on within the police? It doesn't need really sophisticated, deep intellectual skills to understand and to conclude that there is the connection. That the police itself, the police force in each part of the country has ceased to be doing what is long kind of promoted as being the job of the police, to safeguard people and to prevent crimes and to take action against criminals. Criminals operating at the depraved DEFRA, for example, against the most innocent baby angel Geronimo. If there were correct policing, then DEFRA, depraved DEFRA, and the depraved DEFRA officials involved in the confection of the criminal conspiracies against the baby angel Geronimo would have been arrested, prosecuted, and they would have been given appropriate long-term terms in prison under the present arrangements in the so-called UK. But none has been prosecuted. And our view remains that all those who have been in any way involved in confecting, conspiring against baby angel Geronimo need to be prosecuted. And civil damages action must be made against them, including against Boris Johnson and against George Injustice and against Christian Middlemiss. Baby angel Geronimo has been defamed. Now, what would be the response of Johnson to the information that hypothetical that an individual person in society was being targeted by one or more than one serving police persons in post who were conspiring to do any amount of damage to that targeted individual? What would happen if that fact of the targeting was made known through the media? It is quite possible that if that happened and Boris Johnson was reported as supporting the conspirators, he would not be in that post. Now, there is a piece in the Dirty Digger Murdoch's Times by Trevor Terrible Phillips. The Phillips, who is the official mental slave to the regime of the likes of Boris, the congenital liar Johnson, but to all Johnson's predecessors. And Trevor Terrible Phillips is the literally, physically dark-skinned exhibits for the racists who do the trade by denying the humanity of people, including dark-skinned people from African backgrounds. Terrible Phillips has been employed to peddle the anti-Muslim intolerance in a way that nobody else has been doing. Not even Boris Johnson has been defaming the Muslims, inciting hatreds against Muslims. And here in the times today, where the mental slave is given the piece under the heading, we don't need bond to be black or female. That heading actually sums up where the mental slave Trevor Terrible Phillips is focusing on. He's not including the black and female, he's not including Muslims. Why am I talking about Muslims? Because he is the one who has been put forward as the very dark skin, because that is a visual diversity exhibit, supporter of the anti-Muslim agenda that Johnson and others in the scum party have been peddling. So Trevor Terrible Phillips is doing what he does most often, which is to appear to be a diversity token, but actually doing the service for the racists, the imperialists, the anti-Muslim inciters. Is doing their job by making it appear that all their anti-Muslim incitement, their racist hatred, their racist denial are all okay. And here he's saying that they're not okay because black or female are not included in the activities and the details of his masters, political masters and political mistresses. He's saying the answer to upper class white man's dominance is not to try to erase the species. It is to bring something to the table that even they have to concede is better than their own offering. Now, Trevor Terrible Phillips is talking about bring onto the table. The table doesn't belong there. There is no table where there is no home. So he's leaving out the homeless, he's leaving out the many, and he's leaving out the likes of the thousands that have been robbed of their lowest amount of the benefits by the series of criminals in power, incumbent in the posts. And the Trevor Terrible Phillips doesn't talk about the absence of compassion. He doesn't talk about the cruelty. He doesn't talk about the actual conspiracy that is routine. It doesn't matter whether it's a class or not. It's a question of racism. Racism is not a class thing. By implying that upper class white man, he's saying that the white people who are racist but are not actually upper class white men are not racist. That's not the case. Racism is around the clock, unending violation of universal human rights at every stage. It is not confined to or limited to races of one class or one gender. And the criminal is also recognizing here this is the piece that this criminal would not use when targeting the Muslims for his service or civility, to the cause and agenda of anti-Muslims. He says, human beings come in a glorious array of shapes, sizes, colors, predispositions. He doesn't say faith. He doesn't say faith at all. And then he said we should cherish that. And then he says a weird sentence there. It's a very weird sentence. We should cherish that some of us may not be so great at kicking people in the face or drowning them in the bath, but we have our own ways of getting results. What on earth does he mean? Of course, he is referring to the bond, but he's not denying his servility in attacking Muslims, drowning Muslims in the bath, in the rhetorical sense, in the propaganda sense. And it is the likes of Trevor Terrible Phillips who have been contributing to the defiant perpetration of no accountability, no respect for the innocent, no recognition of the duty to justice. Trevor Terrible Phillips has not been employed by his racist masters and mistresses for no reason. Trevor Terrible Phillips has been employed by his racist masters and mistresses who have exploited the tolerance, the racist intolerance being tolerated in this country by the majority of the stooged and licensed kind of leaders at the expense of the people that are supposed to lead. For example, people in the population, in the demography, mainly based on consisting of people of African descent, either directly from Africa or through the Caribbean, or people of the various Asian backgrounds and descents. Trevor Terrible Phillips has been employed by his racist masters and mistresses to create the myth that a black-skinned image of him pigmentationally represents the lives, the truths, and the voices of the people of African origin, as well as people of the Asian descents. Trevor Terrible Phillips does not want to discuss empire, imperialism, most certainly not the detailed slave trade. There is a token slave trade and there is a detailed slave trade. The slave trade is continuing today as well. And Trevor Terrible Phillips has never been seen or heard to be engaged in questioning racism, imperialism, most certainly not crusade. The crusade. Everything that Boris Johnson has said ever against Muslim people has been connected with the cultural conditioning of the likes of Johnson himself, conditioning into accepting that denying equal human entitlements to Muslims is not a wrong. Boris Johnson actually believes that this is a correct position. Boris Johnson believes that spraying poison is okay. Not only that, but that spreading poison is a good thing. Like spreading lies and hatred against Muslims is a good thing. That telling the Little Englanders during the 2016 so-called referendum, in the run-up to the referendum, that if Britain didn't exit the European Union, then millions of Turks would take over England, would arrive in England and take over England. That's what he said. Now, the conditioning goes back centuries and includes the crusade, also includes the appearance in places like Spain. The appearance in places like Spain over centuries of Muslim presence. Muslims appeared to be about to arrive in Northern Europe. These are all parts of the facts in history that actually have been included in the work in conditioning Little Englanders and others of their ilk into thinking that Muslims actually represent a threat. That is the threat that Johnson was invoking. And he was invoking it intentionally, knowingly, dishonestly, untruthfully, in order to inflame anger and fear and scare the voters at the referendum in June 2016 into doing their worst in order to make sure that the UK didn't remain a member of the European Union. They were told, the Little Englanders in the majority, by Johnson and Johnson-fronted cabal, that the Muslims, the only way to stop millions of Muslims taking over England was to get out of the European Union. Intentionally lying about the fact that the Turks would never become members of the European Union, that the Turks were not members of the European Union, and the Turks were not likely to be members of the European Union. This is big stuff. Brexit has paralyzed big parts of the UK economy already. And Brexit is going to paralyze more parts of the UK than is ever being admitted in the Fleet Street papers today, or has been included or admitted in the papers in the last 2 months, that the crisis has been getting worse by the day, by the hour, by the liter, by the absent liter. Shelves, supermarket shelves are getting emptier. HGV drivers are very scarce. And there is overall impending disaster coming, despite the fact that the likes of the Murdoch scum deviate into stupid diversionary pieces like this one. And they are reducing this real crisis, fuel crisis, into this kind of stupid, jokey headlines. It's not joke. And the other Trevor, the evil Kavanagh, the Scottish racist liar, or the Scottish-born racist liar for Little Englanders, is sunk in his own lies by invoking Labour Party of the 70s. And they're not talking about the fuel crisis, not talking about the Brexit disaster, not talking about the shortage of food. So Fleet Street, the street of filth and lies and denials. It's not talking about the shortages at all. It's absolutely in denial. Now, greed is not good. Greed is, of course, bad and evil. As this particular piece on page 23 of today's Scum shows. It says, and this is a story about a prostitute who defrauded a wealthy client out of 2.5 million and is facing at least 7 years in jail. Now, this is a prostitute who was hired by an agency by the 68-year-old man, who then gave her in total more than 3 million pounds. And when the later bigger amount, which is 2.5 million, which she persuaded him to give him to set up business in Dubai and in Dublin, when the promised businesses did not materialize, the besotted businessman became suspicious and he reported it to the, quote, police. And then she admitted defrauding him at the Aylesbury Magistrates Court and is due in court later to be sentenced, and she is likely to be sentenced to at least 7 years, well, which may end up being 3 years, as the ludicrous criminal, quote, system operates. So the fact that she was prosecuted and she was tried shows that she was not allowed to get away being greedy. So it all depends on who is being greedy. As a prostitute, she is not allowed to get away with being greedy, of course. No one should be. But if it is Johnson, then it is fine. If it is big business, billions and billions and billions of contracts, crooks, under the pretext of HS2, then it's fine. They are not prosecuted. If it's Richard Branson, who has stolen, fleeced the UK public of billions over the years and became a billionaire, then he is never prosecuted. And if criminals like Trevor Terrible Phillips bring harm and damage to the victims of their servility and the anti-Muslim servility, then they are not prosecuted, but they are rewarded. Trevor Terrible Phillips is now given media sports and platforms mainly to spew nephew Tom-like slavery and lying to collect the allowances paid to him by his racist hirers and masters and racist mistresses. Because of people like Trevor Terrible Phillips, the depravity of DEFRA and criminals like George Injustice, congenital liars like Boris Johnson, who collude and are complicit with the criminal spots and plots against the likes of the innocent baby angel Geronimo. These criminals are never held to account. And the fact that they are not held to account is proof that this is dark land, this is evil land, where justice is violated without any accountability by these criminals. Justice is violated against the most innocent baby angel Geronimo. And the fact that Johnson has said that despite the fact that Sarah Everard was kidnapped, was raped, brutalized and murdered in the most indescribable way by a policeman, that there will not be a public inquiry. That is what Johnson has been saying. Shows that it is evil land. He knows, Johnson knows that evil will be tolerated by the judiciary, by the members of the main membership of the elected House of Commons. And Fleet Street will not condemn him, let alone carry out its own investigation into Johnson's life and criminality. That is proof of evil land. And the most innocent, perfectly in the best health, Geronimo, baby angel Geronimo, has been denied the support of the Fleet Street papers, support of the elected members of parliament, while baby angel Geronimo has been the subject for 4 years of lies, dishonesty, invention, defamation, false description. That baby angel Geronimo has been subjected to all of that is proof that Little England is in dark land, is bad land, that is evil land. It's not just the scum. It's not just the scum that Angela Rayner has been in the news about. It is the scum like Keir Starmer that have colluded with and have been complicit with the years of criminally conceived plot to defame baby angel Geronimo. It is scum like Wes Streeting that have conspired against the most innocent baby angel Geronimo, been complicit with the conspiracy to defame baby angel Geronimo and to violate the rights of the baby angel Geronimo and to violate injustice, commit crimes against justice. Because there is no platform anywhere to be found in Little England that actually defends the innocent and opposes the wrongdoers. When the three so-called judges, Murray and Griffiths and Stacey, the last one being a female and the previous one, the first two, being males, when they engaged in lying, by using words they confected in compliance with the depraved DEFRA, They did that by breaking the law intentionally and knowingly breaking the law. And why did they do that? Simply to keep their jobs. They would deny that, but that's what they did. That's what they've done. Murray lied including in his published ruling that he gave against the innocent and for the criminals depraved DEFRA. Murray listed a number of denials that will collapse in front of an objectively active, evidentially neutrally active judge or judicial adjudicator or scrutineer. In the same case, the same finding applies against the behavior of Griffiths, who followed Murray. And of course, both of those are repeated in the behavior of Mary Stacey, the last of the judges that has been on the record so far as behaving as criminally, dishonestly, law-breaking rubber stamp for the depraved DEFRA. So why are these criminals in place? And why is there the pretense that there is a properly functioning state in this country? Because there is not, as I speak at what, 15:56 hours GMT on Monday, the 4th of October 2021. There is no sign, as I can see by checking on the internet, there is no evidence that any legal or constitutional law or international law based challenge on behalf of Baby Angel Geronimo is underway, not at this stage. Because had there been any constitutional law-based, evidence-based, fact-based challenge, singularly or as a serial challenges on international constitutional law forums against the behavior, against the intentionally negligent criminal behavior on the part of depraved DEFRA, and therefore on the part of the depraved congenital liar Boris Johnson fronted cabal called the, quote, UK government. Then the criminals at DEFRA, depraved DEFRA, would be unable to go ahead and continue to perpetrate the lies and denials and the untruths against the perfectly healthy and the perfectly most innocent Baby Angel Geronimo. And the fact that the Daily Mail, which claims to be the champion of the public, the kind of demography, the voters, electors, they should be actually kind of qualified as being little Englanders, people that hold the attitude about the world, attitudes towards ordinary existence as little Englanders, because to them, the continents of Africa, the continent of Asia, the continent of America, for example, they don't exist. To them, the world, the whole planet, is in Little England. And to them, Little England is bigger than the rest of the contents of the continents of the planet Earth. It is that sick. It is that sick. Which is why they have not, the so-called kind of critics, mild critics. There is a coincidence here. There have been a number of actual agents and spies and infiltrators into the public domain on behalf of the depraved DEFRA. And the depraved DEFRA lies so far have included the mechanical statement that they have been sympathetic to Helen MacDonald, baby angel Geronimo's mom. That is an absolute aggravated criminal lie by the depraved DEFRA. Because the Fleet Street liars have known that that is a lie, and yet they have not challenged the perpetrators, depraved DEFRA perpetrators of that lie. They have not challenged the depraved DEFRA on the facts, on the evidence, on the signs. So therefore they have retailed for 4 years, let's say, over the last 4 years, whatever the actual dates. The Fleet Street liars and colluders have behaved as Little Englanders. And they have therefore allowed the depraved DEFRA to make drastically inconsistent, contradictory statements and be allowed to make those statements and not be challenged. So if you look at the behavior of the Boris Johnson fronted cabal on any kind of topic, as ordinarily understood, any topic, any issue, any subject, any area, any concern, any threat, any shortage, if you look at the behavior of the Boris Johnson fronted cabal in relation to any of those, you will find the same lying, the same dysfunction, the same unfitness, the same brazen propensity to tell lies and to deny the facts, that deny the truth. So if this behavior on every front, at every front, was being assessed objectively, neutrally, transparently, ethically, morally, truthfully, evidentially, then none of these operatives or operators in the Johnson-fronted cabal and the agencies underneath that cabal should be allowed to remain in the posts concerned, perpetrating the lies, the denials, the injustice, the criminality, the diversion, the dishonesty, and the attacks on the innocence and the attacks on the core concept of justice and the attacks on the entitlements, universally, justly valid, absolutely valid entitlements of the most innocent baby angel Geronimo. We shall be continuing. This is just after, I think, over an hour of this part, this edition, part A, and we shall be continuing in the next part or parts. Baby angel Geronimo is the most innocent person. And we say to Sarah Everard, rest in eternal peace. And we say to Sabina Nessa, rest in eternal peace. We shall be updating on and campaigning for justice for those two.